Thank you, Paulo. The title of the talk today is Enterprise IT Architecture to the Rescue. So I work for a rather large enterprise IT organization, and I think we're heading for distinction. Let me clarify. I don't mean that we're not going to have any role to play in the future, but there is a lot to say about the democratization of IT in the enterprise. The enterprise IT organization that we see in many big enterprises today, it was kind of a move to try and wrangle in the control of this newfangled technology called IT back in the day. But over time, it has led to, I would say, a very introverted IT organization that tries to control more than it should, getting very focused on the process of managing the increasingly complex IT systems that we gather over time, and that quickly turn into technical debt. Now, I've talked for many years about the fact that the enterprise IT organization has been left behind by developments in technology due to this fact that we have enough work to do with managing what we already have, not able to follow the developments in the outside world, and what we see here, like DevOps, agile methodologies, the increasingly easy available cloud technologies are examples of this. And nowadays, it's not the enterprise IT department that's the sole provider of IT solutions anymore. And gradually, the power of creating solutions goes to the end user, the people that actually see the problems in their day-to-day business. This also has some effect on the way we organize the IT in our enterprise. So we're going from looking at the value chain to looking at more autonomous individual business units. But of course, this has a very profound effect on our IT portfolio, because each individual business unit or user, while they might know their business very well and they know what they need, they don't necessarily know what's best overall, and they are not the best guardians and custodians of the overall architecture. So there is an argument for that we need something in this situation of interconnected autonomous business units. We need some function to control the overall IT architecture. In Statoil, we have created a network for this, and I'm going to go through a little bit of how we do this. And so this is, of course, a little bit of motivation that we have internally. If you look at the structure like this, which is kind of an image of most of our legacy IT applications, you can look at this and wonder what it is. I think actually it is the main office of the Bank of Georgia or something in Tbilisi. But anyway, if you're going to extend this building, you need to know quite a few things. And the argument is that this is a result of architecture. The architecture itself, we can have that discussion over a beer probably. But you need to know the foundation, you need to know the water pipes, the electrical wiring, and so on and so forth. And you must understand, like I said, the current architecture in order to make changes. And this is what we're trying to do in enterprise architecture. Of course, most organizations have an accidental architecture. The vision was probably not like this. Without the vision, implementation is a hallucination. And the ambition of our enterprise IT architecture is to go from reactively documenting what we have to actually driving the change in the organization. So we have different layers of architecture that we look at. We have technical architecture, we have application architecture, information and data architecture, and business architecture. And through these we have two main views. So we have the current state, which is important to document so we know what we have, and we have the future state, which is important for what to do in the future. And to kind of support these two views, we have a set of architects and architecture roles. So, enterprise architecture is about the business. It's about the enterprise's future state, and it's about controlling the change in a positive direction. And translating the business vision and strategy into effective enterprise change, which sounds easy but is increasingly hard, especially if you have a large organization like we do. And the different layers deal with different things. The business architecture, of course, is related to how the business is run. Information data architecture tries to take the information objects and data that supports that business and structure them. Application architecture talks about the overall applications and how they interact, and the technical architecture is more about the internals of each application, put very simply. And again, the two different layers. So what we have done is we've created this network of architects, and there is a hierarchy and a structure to this. So we have on the top we have a chief enterprise IT architect who sort of leads the entire effort. He's then anchored in the corporate IT department, so kind of together with the head of the IT function. We have a set of lead architects, some lead data architects together to manage our data models, and also we have a lead IT architect, which is, or several of those, which are connected to the business areas. So they are responsible for managing the business functions, business needs, and collaborate with them. Data and solution architects kind of is a bridge between the lead architects and the software architects who work on the applications itself in the production lines. And then we have the specialists, kind of the technical domain architects that deal with specific technology. It could be security or other specific things. And the roles, they cover the different parts of the enterprise IT architecture. So as you can see, the lead IT architect covers the business architects down to the information and data architecture. The data solution architect covers overlaps with the lead IT architect and also the software architects. And the software architects are responsible down to the application architecture and the technical architecture, and then collaborates with the technology architects. And they are distributed throughout the organization to create a network in terms of connecting with different business units, as well as internally in the IT organization to gather, to sort of link up with both the people that build the software, i.e. the service provider, and also the business units. So the main point of this is that it is a network of people, and that creates so there are names for different people in these different roles, so that whenever you start a new initiatives, you know who to speak to. So there are clear responsibilities in terms of who has responsibility for what, and it creates kind of at least a better possibility for information to flow both down from corporate initiatives and up from sort of communicating what type of problems we have in the production lines with actually building this stuff. That kind of goes into the experience part. It's been very useful for us to have this network. Of course, networks have their pros and cons. Whenever you put people in place in different roles, you get a situation where you are dependent on that person and that person's experience. So you will end up with someone being more interested in the business side, and naturally gravitating towards the business processes and the modeling of those. And some people having more of technical interest and gravitating towards that, learning about the technology. But the point that we have a fairly large network of people mitigates that by having many people there with different interests, so we kind of fill each other out. Of course, this gap that we have sometimes from the business architects, and I'm sure you are all aware of this, that if you are very, very interested in the business side of things and very connected to that, you tend to be less connected to the technical side of things, and this gap between the software architects and the business architects is we try to fill that by having people like me who have a little bit of a foot in both camps. I must confess that I'm more drawn to the technical side of things than the business side of things, but we try to bridge the gap. But again, there is a divide there that we have to try and close. All in all, this is an experiment that we are running now. We have done for I think 3 years. It's starting to show good results in terms of we are having some corporate initiatives that we see that where the information flows much easier down to, especially down to the software architects in the production lines, because they often complain that they are never told when something new happens. So this network is kind of helping in that direction, and it's also easier for us to get information back from the practical problems we have on the software architecture side, back up the chain to the chief architects or the corporate IT people that tries to decide what to do. But it's not a perfect process, and it's still something we have to work with all the time. So that's all I thought I'd have to say to you today. Thank you very much for listening, and have a nice afternoon.
It's just really simple. And how's it working? Because enterprise architects aren't known historically for their flexibility and openness to stuff bubbling up to them.
Yes, and I would love to say that we have a magical cure for that, but we don't. Of course, one important step in trying to mitigate some of that is to get to know people. And this network is kind of a good thing in that respect. We actually get together fairly often. I would say twice a year at least, maybe more than that sometimes. And then you over the years you get to know each other and build a relationship. And working with people, that's I think the best thing you can do, right? It's get a relationship and get the communication going.
Yeah, so you mentioned people like you that bridge the gap between the business and tech-centric architects. Mm-hmm. So what percentage among all your architects, what percentage of people would be in this role?
We have one, if you look at the yellow boxes, more or less one per of the yellow ones. So we have 6, I think, of the yellow architects, kind of the bridge builders. And of course, in an organization with 1,000 people, it's not a lot. So it's not a big percentage, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jørn.